And you know, it was in 1975 where we became good friends and started our craft. So we have this at the entrance.
Hang on, I'm gonna jump in for 2 seconds. Grace and Kate, Grace is in Hawaii right now, and Kate, I think you're in Denver. Do either of you two have anything you want to add to Amy's explanation of your history or your time together?
I mean, I'm all good for that. Yeah.
I don't know. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, you can. Hi.
I can hear you.
Hello. I can't hear myself. Thanks, Amy. That was really awesome. That was a great introduction. Yeah, thanks. That's good.
Okay, thank you both. We'll get back at it. We appreciate you. So the way we laid out this initial first wall here is that we wanted to have a signature piece that represented each artist and their work. So you will see Grace's piece is called Two-Faced, just a really beautiful representation of her figurative work. I've been telling groups that come through, what I love about Grace's work, both figure and portrait that you will see, is I often, as a curator, I have people say to me, I don't want to buy figurative work or portraits. I don't want a painting of Sarah Miller hanging in my house, unless you're my husband or my kids, maybe. But Grace represents, in my mind, humanity from a very anonymous standpoint, but an emotional standpoint that captures all of the emotions of humanity. So I use anonymous in all of the best ways. It is Grace can take a figure and turn it into someone that is so relatable to all of us and makes us feel. And that's what I love about both her figurative and her portraiture. We will move on. This is Amy's piece. We'll let Amy talk about this one and why this piece. You want me to talk about it?
She does an amazing job interpreting. So I'm going to let Sarah continue.
Great.
But this is mine.
And I promise you, we are not going to take you on a tour of all 55 pieces because we'll be here until 8 o'clock tonight. But we wanted to show you a few of the amazing standouts. So this piece for Amy is called Releasing the Past. We'll let Amy talk when we get to her section a little bit about her two styles of work that she has in this show. Amy obviously is an abstract artist. What I love most about her work is I love walking around and reading her titles because her titles speak to her moment of creation. That for me is what is so magical about her artwork. When Amy calls a piece Releasing the Past, you can tell she is in the studio, hands down, head down, putting that paint on the canvas or the plexiglass or the Denryl, and she is in that moment of creating what is the releasing of the past mean to me, and how can I represent that in movement and color and energy. So that's what we just really love about her body of work, and we thought this was a really representative piece of that. Then Kate's piece on this signature wall is called Opening to Joy. Kate obviously works in florals. She hasn't spent her whole career in florals, but this show is all florals. This one is a 20 by 20. We have all the way up to 36 by 36 of Kate's work. Kate, to me, I had a woman come into the gallery the other day and she said, I feel like I'm seeing Georgia O'Keeffe's work live in Evergreen. What we love about Kate's work is obviously it is very realistic, but it's not uber realistic. It's not a photographic representation. The way Amy uses paint to bring these flowers to life on the canvas is so beautiful, and there's so much emotion layered into her oil layers, and so much light that comes through in these florals that she creates. That's the other. So there's our signature wall. Now we'll move back. Amy's putting her lipstick on so she looks beautiful on camera. And we're gonna go back to Amy's section first, and then we'll move on to Kate's and Grace, and we'll be sure to give them an opportunity to talk about their work. So Amy, if you wouldn't mind, I want you to guide this part, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about your process and how you came to this style of artwork.
Thank you, Sarah. You are just brilliant with words. Amazing. So at the beginning of each of our sections, we each have a panel that just tells you a little bit about our philosophy. And those panels are also in that link that you can click on and read at your leisure. So no need to look at that now for the detail. But my art, because I started so young, my dad was an artist, I started learning from the basics and started to learn how to represent reality, all the techniques of watercolor, colored pencil, charcoal, and when I advanced into college and was studying history, the history of art, which was one of my favorite classes, I started feeling so terrible that I would never be a Rembrandt or I would never be a Caravaggio. And I was taking modern dance and I started realizing I want to find my voice. Like I want to find who am I as an artist? Maybe I can make something that's unique to me that isn't what's already out in the world. So that became my passion about halfway through college. And I talk about my art as an autobiography because throughout my life, my art has changed and significant periods of my life, it has changed. For example, just an example, in the 80s, I was in a relationship, a marriage that was very confining and there wasn't a lot of room for my art. And my art is like all these lines with energy trying to escape. And I felt, and it wasn't until years after I looked at my art and realized, oh my gosh, this is my spirit trying to express myself. And of course that relationship didn't work out. I moved to New York City and that was the beginning of the true style that I work through to this day. So that was from the 90s to today, is this holographic energy movement that's all about color and textures. And for me, it's really a reflection of life and how our lives are all about color, textures, layers. And as you look at my paintings up closer, you see the details in those layers. And the second point I'll make about my art is it's really about dance and capturing that moment, getting out of my head, like a meditation, but it's not really, because I'm constantly challenging myself to create balance and grace within this kind of chaotic movement of energy. So that's really my goal as an artist, is to create these graceful, energetic, layered experiences of life. So we'll just do a couple of my pieces because as Sarah said, we don't have time to look at everything. But this painting right here, I had a little piece. Debbie, I don't know if my little notebook's on the table. Anyway, on that table, this piece I love. I'm not sure how close you can zoom in, Jackie, but there's multiple layers on this piece, and it's okay. I painted both sides. I started working in the mid-90s on sheer materials such as plexiglass and architectural vellum, which is like a plastic, so that my surfaces became sheer because I didn't want to contain the art. I wanted it to expand out. And I didn't want, so that's where you start seeing what I call my full field art style, where the energy is moving off the page. So your imagination can just go with you. And with this piece in particular, you can see how I've scraped, I've painted the back side, and then the front side, I've added the blues and the purples to show that brilliant orange and green coming through from the back. And I have a few pieces like that. Some of the pieces will go to this one. This piece is on a plexiglass surface, so you can touch it. It doesn't have glass on the top. And again, you see that full field of expression going out. Here, back here, this is one little corner of my work. You can see these paintings have white around them, and I call this nucleus style. And the reason I call it nucleus, if you think of galaxies, if you ever just even go on the internet and look at pictures of galaxies, they talk about these galaxies as having nucleus. They're self-contained, like little galaxies and entities within themselves. And that's, you know, they all have a top and a bottom, they have a center heartbeat. And so these I call my nucleus style. And then here we have a full field style. This is another nucleus style. Again, nucleus, and then here's a full field. And this one is also painted on both sides.
So while we're stopped at this one, I would love to share, we do an event at CAE's Center for the Arts Evergreen called Coffee Conversation and Creativity. And we had a group of about 50 seniors, not seniors in high school, but seniors 60 and better last week here. And we did an art experience in our classroom that Amy led. And then we did a writing experience in the gallery that I led. And each of the women, we had one gentleman and probably 15 women. Each of those individual writers used the artwork in the gallery as a prompt for their writing.
Wow.
This piece of Amy's, which is called Heart Song Singing, we had a woman at the table, and I shared this with Amy after the fact, who started writing about this. And I was just doing free writing prompts for everyone. She started writing about this piece, and she said she started thinking about the color purple and the movement and the energy in this purple. And she said, Sarah, I wrote about something I never would have thought that I would have. She said, I'm not going to get political in this environment. But she said, suddenly I was talking about purple from the perspective of all of us coming together as a country and as a humankind. And it was really beautiful that these writers used this artwork as inspiration for things. And I'll tell you about, I've got a story about one of Kate's pieces and one of Grace's pieces that we'll talk about on the tour as well.
Perfect. Should I just show a couple more?
Sure. One thing I want to zoom in on really quickly is just because do this little card here.
What?
You will
You have to
notice
go
has a red dot on it.
Okay.
You will see some red dots as we are moving through the gallery. That means, as we all know, that this piece is sold. But just so you know, all of the artwork in the gallery is for sale. There are links in the catalog as well. If you see something that you love on this tour or after the fact in the gallery, please give me a call. It is my greatest joy in life to sell artwork by these amazing artists. So you know how to get in touch with me through the Center for the Arts Evergreen website. We'll show a couple more of Amy's pieces.
So I have this other little alcove here, and it's wonderful how Sarah set up the shows. We all have our little intimate space. You can kind of see, they're kind of grouped by color. This is another favorite one of mine. Again, it's called Coming to Life. And it just is it was a beautiful dance that I remember that day, that moment where it all came together. And the other thing I will add about my work, sometimes people, when I've done outdoor shows, people will say, how long did it take you to do that? You know, or my kindergartner could do that. And I always answered the same thing. It took me 16 years to do that because I usually work in multiples. I work I knew I have this frame. So I started from the frame inside. I go from the inside out, so to speak. And so I set up my material, my blanks, and I knew the size, and then I set up about 4 of them. And then I just go into the zone, I play music. These particular ones, I did not play music because I'm doing media fast right now, and just being in the silence. And I was able to go very deeply. And all 4 of those really kind of turned out. And this one was just magical. And that's my favorite thing in the world is being in my gallery, painting. Then the minute my mind starts saying, oh, that's not very good. Oh, what did you do that for? I put everything down and I leave my studio because that mind starts judging and then I mess up everything. So then when I come back, I start to see these beautiful relationships with the color and the movement. And it is kind of like a floral bouquet, only with artistry, colors, texture. All right. Thank you so much.
We're at 20 after. Thank you so much, Amy. I think if it's all right, Grace, I see your face in my camera right now.
Okay.
If you're all right that we move to your section, and we would love it if you just want to give us a little bit of background on your artwork. And probably what we'll do for your pieces is talk about one of your color pieces and one of your charcoal pieces as well, if that works for you.
Okay. All right.
So
So,
give us the rundown, Grace. You did such a great job in our Q&A at the exhibition opening, but just tell us a little bit about how you've gotten to this place in your artwork and why specifically figure and portrait is what inspired you right now.
okay. All right. It's a little spotty for me to hear you. Aloha, everyone. And thank you so much, Sarah and the Center for the Arts and Amy, especially for hosting us in such this beautiful technological world. Really appreciate you putting us out there, Sarah. As far as what got me to this point, I love to experiment. I love to try different mediums. They each seem to have these wonderful qualities, and yet they also seem to have their kind of drawbacks. Watercolor, we started with our wonderful teacher, Pastorelli, and to me, they felt almost too soft and too delicate. I wanted something more earthy. So I started doing oils, and oils are wonderful and buttery. I absolutely love them. And yet you have to work with some toxic, odorless mineral spirits. So then I tried encaustic. Encaustic is painting with beeswax, and love that. But it's very delicate. It melted in the middle of a show. I had some pieces melting with the lights on them. So I thought, okay, beeswax is not it. And as I'm experimenting with techniques and materials, was also experimenting with subject matter. What you're seeing is really all figurative, but I've done landscapes and still lifes and abstract and everything, every adventure, every experiment is a learning process. What's ended up happening with these is that love, that constant love for, I think there's a big part of theology and spirituality for me in the figure. It seems like we all relate to this, the human dance, the human struggle, and curiosity and wonder about our own bodies and minds. And so I feel like ultimately I've landed on this figurative experience. And as you could see with most of them, okay, you might lose me, but I've lost my image, but can you guys still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'll keep going. But most of the images you see are multi-layered with multi-medium, a lot of mixed medium. So I've kind of landed on this oils. I use graphite to start with, stream of consciousness. Because I've studied the figures so much, I can kind of now begin to make up faces and figures, and really enjoy doing that with lots of layers of different material: acrylic, chalk, oil pastel, graphite, and sometimes I can even put a little bit of oil paint on top of the acrylic. You never want to do it the opposite. It won't stick. So always put your oil on top of acrylic bases. And then in regards to the drawings themselves, there's charcoal drawings. And for me, those are really the starting place. Let's see. Yeah, they're just quickly done. I feel like they capture something about life because, like Amy was saying, I don't have time to think during these. I just try to get in the flow. If I'm thinking too much, the drawing becomes really tight, and you just have to throw them away. So it's an experience in being able to let go too, is doing both the drawings and the paintings. I think ultimately I've learned, one of my favorites in this show is the Nailed It piece, where I just tore up, cut up, ripped up some paintings that I was not fond of. And
We're
with
moving
the,
to that piece, Grace.
okay, with the desire that, you know, like a sand painting, it's okay to blow away, to get rid of, to let go, and not feel so precious about it. And to me, that opened up a whole new world, and is to be just kind of piece back together from things that you don't like or mistakes. You can piece back together and come up with something special. And I felt like that's the direction that I want to keep going and keep going this way for a while.
Thank you,
that's-
Grace. For those of you that can't see this piece, you're not live and in person, but hopefully if we zoom in, you can see. Grace mentioned this, but when she cut up these canvases, this is actually nailed back together. You can see the nails along the contours of the different pieces. I love that added multimedia element in this piece. It just jumps off the canvas. You are literally getting layers in it. And then these nails just add to the story so much as well. We'll go to the stage, and Grace, I want you to hear this because I want you to hear the story that was written about one of your pieces. We're gonna go to this piece right here. This piece is called Cheek to Cheek. And I actually pulled this down off the wall. We had the writing table set up in the back of the gallery. So we took it off the wall and we moved it back. The woman who started writing about this, she is not a fiction writer, but none of these people were professional writers, albeit a couple. And the woman said to me, I usually will just write kind of personal memoir, just to kind of get my thoughts of what am I experiencing in life right now. She wrote a dialogue. I gave them 8 minutes time to write. And in that 8 minutes, she wrote a whole dialogue of this brother and sister in Africa. She had names for them and she had their immigration experience and the two of them talking to one another as they were leaving their homes in this village. She finished reading it. Everybody was just in awe and the room kind of went silent. And she said, I don't know where that came from. It was so inspiring. And then when she left, she said, I'm going to take this. Really think about what this story might mean. So we're doing these experiences monthly, and I told her to come back in February and bring me what she had written because I was very eager to hear the future of these two individuals in Cheek to Cheek and the story of this brother and sister and what they might do.
Oh, I just love that. That brings, I'm choked up that to realize that it inspired someone in that way. And I would love to hear myself what she wrote about it. It's just like, it's stream of consciousness. Like she said, where did that come from? I feel the same about the painting. Sometimes I just don't even know where it comes from. The painting starts to speak. So it's wonderful to hear that it spoke to another person.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, thank you for that, Grace. Feel free to chime in.
Yeah.
We're going to move to Kate's work, but feel free to
All right.
chime in if there's anything that comes up on any of this. So Jackie is going to navigate the stairs with the help of my arm here, so we don't dump all of you in the camera. And we're going to head back to Kate's section. And Kate, as soon as we get stationary again, if you wouldn't mind talking about a little bit about your history and process, just as Amy and Grace did. So we'll get stationary here and we'll let you take the mic.
Okay. And you can hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Great. I was going to get my headphones. I don't have my headphones on, but, well, I mean, really, I think I was more of my, on my information was just, really my relationship with nature and loving nature and flowers being so, something so important, you know, I mean, so many people, you know, they go, yeah, that's a beautiful flower. What's its name? And it's, you know, I think they come from a more cerebral part where they're just thinking about, yeah, it's a flower. We're just thinking in our mind, it's a flower. But when you really get intimate with the form, when you get intimate with any part of nature, you really do start to see its kind of unique expression, just like ourselves. And I think that's really where I come from when I'm painting the flower is this, you know, a little bit of like what Amy pulls on, of movement, also just the expression of the flower. You know, I'll look through the flowers, I have so many references and I love, you know, looking at them, but something will hit me and it will speak to me and I'll start out and just find a canvas that's going to make that fit and go for it. But I feel that each flower really does have that different expression for sure for its unique self, like ourselves. But one thing I teach in my classes, I teach at the Art Students League, and the biggest thing I teach is to turn down our inner cattle prod, I call it, basically, and to, just kind of open up and surrender to the medium of oil, to not let it overwhelm you, that white canvas. The big thing to, just get in front of it, cover that canvas, as quickly as possible with as much value or print that you can, and then get into it and keep moving that form. And I use from the center out. I usually am from the center out of the flower out. And, it's a big thing of just not overthinking it, looking at the flower that really, kind of inspired you in the first place, looking at it, taking note of all its beautiful form, because it's a dance of kind of like, I still have to make it representational, but there's still an expression in this flower. And that's what my goal is really in my painting of my flowers.
And Amy, could you talk a little bit? I've had a lot of questions in the last week about specifically with your work, source photos versus live in person.
I've got to watch this program.
Oh,
I said Amy, sorry, Kate.
yeah. Oh, okay.
Amy was in front of me. I was distracted.
That's
Talk
okay.
about your process on that.
Process on
Photo
painting?
versus in real life,
Okay.
source
Oh, yeah.
photos.
I mean, I do, I actually take a lot of photos. So I work from photos. I'm very lucky to have a great color printer. So I print out my source photo and print from that. I've tried working off of a screen, and it just doesn't, just can't do it. I can't do it. But I've also done some plein air, and like I say, I'm just, usually that's more of a landscape or capturing a mountain field with the motion and the depth and things like that. But I usually set up an easel next to me and make sure that reference material is not in my lap or holding it somewhere, because I feel like if you're moving your head up and down, when and you're holding your reference material in your hands, I mean, just that movement down and up, I think you kind of can get a little bit, you just have too much going on. It's kind of like when you're driving along and the radio's on and all of a sudden you're lost, you have to turn off that distraction. And so I try to eliminate as much distraction as possible in the process. So I just tape my reference material, which is just a photo, and up to my side, and then get going on it. Sometimes I've gotten into it, like I say, I really do look for kind of a personal expression of what that flower is really emulating. And, I just push that, then you become then you're the creator of that motion. You're the one that's going to, put that expression of that flower down on the canvas and look at it. So.
And talk to me, I had a question, Kate. I also run a book club here at CAE. We read fiction books based in the art world. So my group of lovely ladies and gentlemen that I've been meeting with for 4 years has read a lot about technique. And one of them was asking me the other day, specific to Beyond Worthy, this one that we've been showing, I'll have Jackie swing around. Degas specifically, you learn a lot about his layering techniques in oils and how he used incredibly thin layers of oil that were just multiple layers over and over again to get that glow and that light. Do you tend to be a thin multi-layer oil painter, or do you like to work in thicker, less layers? You could talk about it better.
I mean, a lot of people, they do glazing. Have you ever called that? And I have never done that process, which is kind of I don't know, Grace, have you ever done that, or Amy? I mean, mine is a really straightforward. I use one, what is it? Alkyd? Not Alkyd. That's I say there's a gel that I use that kind of slows down, but actually speeds up the drying process. But really, my whole learning with oil is the opposite of the watercolor world that I learned and stayed in for so long. And that kind of flipping that thing in my mind where you're going from dark to light instead of light to dark. And, and I go back and forth to watercolor and to oil, but what I find when I start to try to get this glow that comes out is I feel like I look through the transparency of the petals. I look through to see, that petal, yeah, that's a white flower, but what's in a white? Just like when you look at snow, what's really in the snow? When you look at snow, it's not white. There's the reflection of the trees, the sky, there's, if you look through it to represent it, there's so much color in every color. And I usually start with, like I said, if I looked at that as my reference point, there's such a glow to that peony that when I start really thin, that's what I'll do is I'll cover that canvas and I'll start with almost a amber yellow beginning in the middle that's kind of gold. Then I go out to some gray and then make some darker gray on the edges. And then I just start in on the center, pulling out the form from the center out.
Thank you for that. We're gonna swing around. I want to tell you the writer's story about your painting. Always good for people to hear. So our writers group was sitting right down here near your florals. And this painting, Dancing Poppy Field, one of the women that was here started writing, and when she shared her work with the group, she was telling us a story about her great grandmother, who she was calling Miss Poppy. And it reminded me when my kids were little, there was a story of the lupine lady, the lupin lady, who used to carry the seeds in her pockets and plant lupins. It was a similar story of her grandmother and poppy seeds that she planted all over the land in Minnesota where she lived. And this woman started off using that story inspired by your piece. And by the end of her 8-minute writing prompt, we had a history of her entire extended family. It was like this had inspired in her genealogy and the celebration of the history of where she came from, the land that she came from, and the people that made her who she was. And I thought that was really special.
I love that. I love that. I love to hear that inspiration.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we will swing back to Amy since she's still here with us in the gallery. And I just want to thank all of you for spending your hour with us. We'll do some last comments from each of the artists if they want to, and then we can open it up to some questions if anybody's got questions online. Yeah, Amy says she's up for questions. Anybody have questions for our artists? You can put them in the chat. I'll monitor the chat, or you can unmute yourself.
Questions or comments? We welcome anything. And I did sneak a peek at who was here, and I just want to thank you, all of you. I love you, and thank you so much for coming. Any thoughts or anything coming through, Sarah?
The biggest thoughts in the chat, if you haven't checked it out, are all of these people that have known these ladies for so long, and not only they appreciate the beautiful artwork, but how amazing all three of these ladies look. So that's a theme in the chat right now, and we're allowed to talk about beauty in all of its aspects. Anything else from anyone? Please know that, as I said, we're here in Evergreen, Colorado. We do 10 exhibitions a year in the gallery. We always have our show catalogs online. We always do Q&As both live at our exhibition openings. And then we have a full range of classes, yoga, live concerts, our book club that I mentioned. We are a true community art center and offering lots of different opportunities for people to be involved in all the arts. So
Can you hear me?
Is like, for example, the yoga class that is going to be here on Saturday. The yoga class is taking place in the gallery. So, I mean, how cool is that? And then like the wine tastings that you're going to have. So they really, I just love how Sarah and Lisa bring the community into the art experience. It's not just this separate, there's a gallery, it's really making art accessible. So we're all honored to be here, but we just so support what you guys are doing. And being part of that workshop, I think there were 30 in here, but there were like 65 people.
Amy had a lot of people.
There were a lot of people, and it was so engaging and people were just having a great time. So not only is it about showing art, it's about experiencing art. And so, I mean, I'm definitely gonna be telling my friends about coming out for the workshops. Debbie and I, come here, Debbie. Debbie is, Mike.
Hello?
Peek at who's in the gallery.
These are my friends that came up for the live participation. And, but Debbie's also a mosaic artist, and while we were talking about our Grace's art, we were talking about coming up for the next writers, because I'm gonna be in here and do some writing.
Yeah.
So,
We did have a question.
oh, we have a question.
Do you know Mel?
Did you guys have a question too? So be thinking.
Do you know Mel Mooney?
Yes.
Mel Mooney says, is there a favorite time in your work that always comes back to your favorite period?
Wonderful question, Mel. Leave it up to you.
So we'll let all three of these ladies answer that.
And I just have to say, Mel and I met at Brides Magazine in 1989, I think. I won't go into the story, but she's one of my best friends of all life, and she lives out in Oyster Bay in New York. So thank you, Mel, for that question. I think, I'll be honest with you, my favorite time is what's happening right now. I feel like, I mean, I remember hearing this quote of Picasso when I was in college. And Picasso said, as an artist, you never get older, you only get better. And I have held on to that quote my whole life, because I thought, you know, well, should I go in this career? And then I guess just kept thinking about that. Well, no, as an artist, you only increase in value. So that's how I feel. And Mel has a lot of my early paintings all around her house, and some of them I look at them and I'm like, oh no, because it was right when I was starting a new phase, but that's part of the joy as well. So Kate, let's zoom in on one of Kate's paintings. Did you do all of those? Oh, why don't you answer, Kate?
Well, so favorite times, is that what you say? Favorite time or in our experience of art? I mean, right now I have to agree with Amy. I mean, for me, I feel kind of reborn again, because getting kind of recovering my time back again. I've been in a kind of a elderly care mode for a few years now. And even though, you know, that was a lovely time, but it really zapped my time in front on the easel. So this is a time I feel great exploration for myself, just for sure. That's kind of how I feel about it too. It's a good start again.
And Grace, do you have a favorite time period in your work? Oh, I'm coming around. We're losing our professionalism. So sorry. Grace, are you still on with us?
I'm not sure Grace is. I don't see her. There she-
No.
No, I don't see her. there.
Grace is in Maui, so she may not be coming back to us, because if I were in Maui, I know I'd be enjoying the sun.
Right? I saw a pool behind her. Woo.
Yes. So I will say just thank you so very much for spending your afternoon with us. We so appreciate you, and thank you for being art lovers, art appreciators, artists yourselves. We always say that art feeds the soul, and it's true. We feel really lucky to do what we do every day, and feel so lucky that Grace introduced us to Kate and to Amy and provided us with an opportunity to show their work in our gallery. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your work.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Right.